3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Golf Podcast Live. I'm your host, Rafael Kalamat, alongside Michael Bleackley in Vancouver, as always, brought to you by ECS, Evolve Creative Solutions. Guys, it's Masters Week and there is lots to talk about. So many storylines, it's unbelievable. But before we get started, we have a very special guest from 5 Clubs Golf, Mr. Gary Williams. Gary, welcome to the show.
Guys, great to be with you, as always. And you're right, there's a lot. There always is around Masters Week. They've turned this week into really kind of like golf's global renewal with the combination of the women's amateur event and the drive, chip, and putt, which builds all this momentum. And you get a little taste of the golf course the previous Saturday. And then Masters Week starts, and just like that, it's over. But in between, plenty of things to reflect upon. It was, again, the absence of tension at the end. We always wanted it, but we didn't have it. Except Scottie Scheffler tried to create some in the last 5 minutes with the way that he was putting on the 18th. But there's a lot to get to.
So many storylines, Gary. We're looking at Scottie Scheffler, obviously our 2022 Masters champion, after 3 wins this year, just like Cam Smith, comes under the radar because, of course, Tiger Woods was present and kind of stole the show when it comes to social media and media at large. And then we had, of course, Sung J M, who was also under the radar, who was playing extremely well. You know, whether it was the chip-in on number 3 or it was Rory hitting it from the bunker on number 18. So many memorable things happening. And the Tiger return. We know that you were there Friday and Saturday. Tell us about your experience.
You know, I actually did something I haven't done in 30 years, and that is be there as a fan and as a spectator. And so to be down there and to have this liberating experience of, you know, no phone. And I honestly, and I meant this, I tweeted about it after the day was over. I hope they never change that policy. And not just from my experience, you know, you watch people and you observe them in that environment. And it is like a time capsule. Nobody is, you know, holding up a phone. Everybody's looking each other in the eye. Mm-hmm. They're conversing. Their eyes are not embedded in a device. And they're talking about what they're seeing and who they want to see and talking about the golf course. And so that was my experience for 2 days, just being down there and watching golf shots and, you know, really observing that golf course, which is totally fascinating to look at, no matter how many times you've been there. So to be there to see Tiger again for the first time since I was on that property in 2019 and followed him the entire final round when he shot 70 and won his 5th Masters. That was my experience, and it was great. Now, I will say that Saturday was one of the coldest days that I've experienced being there. The first day in 2017, day 1, that was a very chilly morning. And then I go back to 2000, the year VJ won, when a front came through. Tiger had played earlier in that day and didn't experience all of these really, really windy conditions with the temperature plummeting. And so he actually shot his sub-70 round, but VJ's round is 70. I talked to Jim Nance that night. He said he won the golf tournament today. Now, Jim can be clairvoyant at times. And as he was a couple weeks ago when I had him on my show, and he said, I like Scottie Scheffler. Now, there were reasons, obviously, but still, it was a great 2 days. There's nothing like it.
Well, you certainly have a great show, Gary, and having Jim Nance on and giving that kind of perspective, we don't really hear from the media, and we try to get as many analysts on as possible because they have so much to say. They have so much experience. They've been writing or talking about it for so many years. Meanwhile, people are trying to get players on, or young players who don't have much life experience. I would much rather talk to someone like yourself than a young player, although we love to have players on. You know, going back to when I was very young, I remember the day that Jack Nicklaus was playing at the Masters in 1986, because I was outside with a friend of mine who introduced me to golf at the time, and I'd been playing. We came inside, and his father was watching him, and he said, "You guys, you have to sit down and watch this." So that was kind of my first experience of watching the Masters. I was roommates with Mike who's with us today, obviously, and we watched the Masters in 95, 96, 97, right around there, right, Mike? And we came
definitely.
back, same thing happened on a Sunday. We went early out for a game, came back that day where Tiger was just shooting lights out on Sunday, and what an experience. We sat down and watched that together, and it's hard to believe that was 25 years ago, Mike.
Yeah, it really is. It seems like it was yesterday, because I remember we were all sitting in our own rooms watching the Masters individually in the same house, and all screaming and yelling. Just thought Tiger was going to birdie everything, and which arguably nearly did, but but it was fast forward till now, 25 years later, and it just looks, how strong golf is at this moment. Obviously, Scheffler was a big story here. And to me, I picked him with a bet with Raf individually. I did not pick him on any of my DraftKings cards like an idiot, because I didn't think he was going to pull it off. He's been so hot lately. I didn't think he was going to continue this streak going into the Masters, and basically just do the opposite of what I do if you're betting. But it was a great storyline. The weather threw an unexpected twist. We like to see that spring warmth, and it's kind of like the unofficial kickoff to the golf season.
Yes.
But it really ruffled some feathers. Look at Tyrrell Hatton, wants to come back as a caddy. And there's a lot of problems that weather caused, but again, the Masters delivered. I thought it was great.
It was. I mean, the Tyrrell Hatton thing, I think I love getting players' visceral reaction to a round. His unfiltered reaction to things is really unfiltered. I don't agree with him on his thoughts on, the fact that there is almost a compromising of design characteristics in terms of the way the golf course is set up. And for him and Billy Horschel, and Billy gets animated as well, for those guys to be paired together the last day is almost like, wow, really? Like, we got this? But that golf course can frustrate. And I think one of the reasons it does is that there is a very pleasing dynamic to the way each hole starts, and the complexities of the golf course really kind of materialize the closer you get to the hole. And and I'm not saying that necessarily that lends itself to greatness of it, but I think in this case it does. It was intended to be open. It was intended to be a broad canvas. I think it's gotten a little too confining in some areas. And they tried to change that to some degree on hole number 11 this year with some of the trees that they removed. I think 7 has gotten a little too confining. It's such a narrow hole now. That was not really the original intent of the hole. I had a long conversation with Gil Hance about this last week, looking at the golf course historically. But yeah, I mean, it's an acquired taste. Look, the old course is an acquired taste, starting with Bobby Jones and his misgivings about the golf course the first time he saw it. He walked off. It was his petulance. He couldn't handle it.
Right.
But I think that Augusta National has done a pretty remarkable job, considering it hosts a major championship every year, and it really has evolved over 80 plus years since its creation in 1934.
And they're very careful with the evolution of the golf course. It's not like they get out there without a game plan. They know exactly what they're doing. They plan it meticulously, and I thought they did a good job, because on 11 and 15 it changed the way those holes played. Like 15, for example, the guys couldn't just rip at it. You saw a lot of them lay up. It didn't provide an eagle for the whole week, correct?
That's correct.
Right. And in 11, I thought the way they thinned out the trees and widened that right side of the fairway, but left some key trees to force you to shape a shot to recover. I thought it provided some good theater and, made the players think a little bit. And again, it stretched out a little bit of yards to, combat the distance that these guys are hitting it.
Yeah, I think I like what they did on 11. I didn't like, again, the row of trees, it's not even really a row, it's like a forest of trees that they put down the right-hand side. And where the tee was previously, it had a bend to it that didn't seem natural. And they've moved the tee to the left. They've taken out a number of the trees on the right. It's much more of a straight line look off the tee, doesn't it? And if you want to play it either left to right or right to left, I think it's permissible now. With respect to 15, I don't think it was what they wanted in terms of having no eagles for the entire week. I think the last time that happened was 1967 or 65. Wow. 65, Nicklaus won that year, which was a million years ago. But I think 15, because of the westerly wind that was prevailing during the course of the week, was playing into. So I think a regular week, those guys are going to be able to, go for the green. I don't want to see them hitting that green, though, with 8-iron. That's the whole point, is that if you're going to, there's got to be a balance between the risk and the reward, or at least make it as close to a balance. There was no risk over the last 10 to 15 years with guys, bounding it down that fairway and having a short iron in their hand. I want more drama on 15, and I think the years going forward will provide that. It was an unusual week wind direction-wise coming out of the west.
Yeah, we can't plan on the weather, right? That's one of the beauties of our sport. We can't argue with Mother Nature. She's going to give us what we get, and it's a big factor in a golf tournament.
Well, I'm so excited.
The one thing I would say about one of the reasons I particularly love the way that the Masters is set up, and all the majors are different, but with the shortness of the field, the number of players being less than 100, they have a 1-tee start. And the Open Championship has that as well, but they also have much more daylight. But the fact that it's a 1-tee start, there's really no wave, so to speak. It kind of goes from, the groups that you're most interested in all likelihood probably went off mid-morning one day and later in the afternoon the next day. And I also like the fact that, as opposed to the other three majors where you have usually qualifiers that fill out the field late in the day, you have 6 of the biggest stars bringing the curtain down on Thursday and Friday, chasing the sun. I mean, you had Brooks Koepka in the last group of the day. I mean, it was 10 minutes to 8. I love that.
There's beautiful symmetry with the fact that Tiger Woods was finishing out his round on 18, and then you had Scheffler going out with Smith on number 1. And so the way they played it back and forth on CBS, I found it really, really amazing to watch. And if I just look at the numbers, Scheffler 69, 67, 71, 71 to shoot 10 under, even with his missed putt on number 18. I think he got caught up in the moment and missed that putt. But if we look at other players with their amazing scores, McIlroy at 7 under, Lowry at 5 under, Smith also at 5 under, Morikawa, Zalatoris, Connors, Thomas. Obviously, we're in Canada. We're really thrilled that Connors has had 3 top 10 finishes in his last 3 Masters start. He's got a trend. Obviously, he needs to roll the rock a little bit better, get into his game, and because he's quite the iron hitter. But if we just circle back to Scottie Scheffler, most people don't know he's won 190 junior golf tournaments as a junior. That when he's worked with Randy Smith for all these years and all his accomplishments leading into what he has done. And the size of this victory really meant a lot more to him than he thought. He said later in his press conference that Sunday evening that he was crying before he went out there because he didn't know whether or not he could fill the shoes of a winner or a champion or just pull it off. And time again, he hit shots in the trees, or he hooked that shot. He had that double cross shot and it would get him into a bad position and we'd just get out of it. And I think the momentum changer was on number 3 when he chipped in, because Cam came out of the gates with a bird and he meant business. And he was a hunter. Most golfers like being the hunter, not the hunted, right? And your thoughts on Scheffler and the way he, handled this tournament and how he played?
Yeah, I would go back to the previous day. The way that he ended his round on Saturday, I thought was an indication of his ability to salvage things, because I thought 18 could have been an utter disaster for him. He's cruising along. It reminded me a little bit of 2015 with Jordan Spieth, who had a great up and down from right of the green. And I thought, my gosh, he's been in this position only a couple times at that point in his career. And he wound up kind of cruising on Sunday to that wire-to-wire win. And with respect to Scheffler, this is somebody who you just pointed out his scores, Rafael, and he had under par rounds, so he's right in the middle of this thing. He takes the lead on Friday, doesn't relinquish the lead, but on Saturday, he hits that horrific pulled tee shot into the trees. And I thought that the way he processed, what he was going to do and taking the drop, taking the penalty, he was staring 6 in the face. Nick Faldo thought he was laying up. He thought he was going to leave himself an 80-yard shot.
Yeah.
He rifled that long iron to the back of the green and wound up getting up and down, made a 5, and you're like, wow, that had 6 written all over it.
6 to 8.
Yeah.
I thought for sure he was going to get a 7 on that hole.
Yeah,
I did too. Yeah. And that would have not only, that brings in a host of players, as opposed to us believing that it was going to be kind of a de facto match play with him and Cam Smith on Sunday, and Rory changed everything with what he did. But the way that he started his round, he was shaky. And I thought his up and down on one was brilliant. It looked pretty straightforward, his little chip from the back of the green. That had so much speed to it. And he trundled that down there at almost kick-in range. And I thought that, the first 3 holes, I'm like, wow, he's kind of wobbling here. And he's sitting down there, and him and Cam Smith are below the green on 3. And I was thinking that Cam, I gave him a better shot of getting up and down, just considering the way that they had both started. And not only does he knock it in, now that would have gone by 10, 12 feet, but still he makes it. And Cam Smith winds up making 5, and it's a 2-shot swing, when I thought Cam Smith was going to pick up another shot. And I thought that had to be somewhat psychologically debilitating to Cam.
Definitely.
I thought it was going to be a 3-shot situation. I thought it was going to be, like 5-3 in one direction as opposed to 5-3 in the other direction. And so I thought that he got through the wobbly period, and then after that, the guy made every steely par putt that he had to make. Yeah. And he turned in 34. He basically eliminated everybody in the field, including Rory. As much as that was fabulous what he did, he was too far back. He was running out of holes. He didn't take advantage of 15. I thought him turning in 34 slammed the door on everybody in the field, with the exception of the guys who were close to him. And there was only one guy who was close to him. And that was Cam Smith. And the 12th hole ended Cam Smith's chances right there.
Yeah, and I thought Scottie's start. Right away I'm like, oh, here we go. The nerves are set in.
Yep.
We're gonna have a stiff battle, and then he holds out on 3. And Raf and I were talking about this shot after and how we would play those types of shots, because I find it so unpredictable to pitch one into the hill and let it. You never know where it's gonna go. So we both agreed we'd elect to pick a different shot. And here he goes. And the fact that it bounced the way he predicted it, and it was traveling quickly, like you said, 12 feet long easily. It could have easily missed the pin a millimeter left or right and bounced out and not gone in. But the fact it went in, I'm like, okay, the luck, the Masters gods are shining on Scheffler here today. And from there on, he was just rock solid until the 18th hole. But it didn't matter. He could have 6-putted to win that.
Yeah. No, and the thing about the shot he played, Cam Smith then proceeded to take it upstairs and landed on the green. And it didn't have enough check on it. Shots like that are tough because not only are you playing from a low lie, it's hard to get enough speed to get enough grab for the ball to stop immediately. and his ball just wasn't going to do that. So it goes by. He's then above the hole, has to make a kind of a borderline tentative putt, just trying to make 4 to guard against gunning it by 5 feet. So I thought that was a match play situation, and it was an examination of always expect your opponent to do something extraordinary. And as much as we say that, it's hard to convince yourself that that's actually going to happen. And he was processing what he was going through. But to his credit, he was playing nicely. And then, 12 has been a graveyard of heroes through the decades. And that was it right there.
And then we have one of the biggest storylines of this week. He was only going to announce it game day, and that's Tiger Woods, shooting 13 over, hitting 278s, one on Saturday, 178 on Sunday. Walking around, you could see the discomfort. Now, we could see that he's really healthy, his upper body. He looks like he's in shape. He looks like he has the cardiovascular to walk the course. However, his legs seem to be bothering him somewhat. We don't know if there's a back issue as well, but it looks like he's turning through the ball really nicely. Your thoughts on Tiger Woods, Gary and Mike? I thought it was incredible to see him. It made the Masters even more special than it is. I think he's more open in the media than we've ever seen him before. He takes a lot of pride and happiness when he answers his questions, where he in the past dismissed the media a lot of the time when he finished a bad round or he didn't play too well. So it was just incredible to see him. The amount of coverage that he got even on the range, and the ratings supposedly on the range have outdone anybody watching ESPN coverage or TSN coverage up here. And it's nice to see. It's great to see. Your thoughts on this champion, where people actually thought that he might pull off a 16th major, his 6th green jacket. There was something serendipitous about the fact that he was 46 years old, same age Jack was when he won his last major. So your thoughts about Tiger?
I thought, like you said, it was incredible. And, when I was asked about, in terms of expectations, the way I looked at it, I said I would lean closer to a top 25 than a missed cut. He made the cut and was certainly in position to do that. And then, I don't think the weather conditions lent themselves to giving him not necessarily an advantage, but a reasonable chance, as opposed to if it had been warm, sunny, pretty mild conditions. I think that from where his starting point was to the day of that accident to round 1 is as Herculean as anything that I've seen, short of Ben Hogan's return from his own car accident in 1949 to come back and do what he did, not only immediately in winning, obviously, the U.S. Open in 1950, but subsequently all the things he accomplished afterwards and all the things that he had to do just to be able to play competitive golf. And I think Tiger is in a similar position. I think that there will be a day that there'll be some type of documentary. And I'm guessing that if there's not a crew that is capturing behind the scenes preparation and the arduous process that's required for him to get out and play, they should be doing it for posterity purposes, for all of us to be able to
just
see.
To jump in here, Gary, wasn't Netflix there documenting their series? I think they were. Okay.
They were. I don't know about, access with him is a very particular thing, and rightfully so. I thought him shooting 71 Thursday was not walking up to a miracle. It was a miracle. And then the balance of the 3 rounds, him finishing that golf tournament, walking up 18, getting the adulation that he got from those galleries on that golf course, and the unsolicited smile on his face as he walked from 18 green into the scoring yesterday was, I completed the task. I crossed the line. And the score was what the score was.
Yeah.
But it is a starting point for him. It's not an ending point.
Yeah.
And I also thought, and I really appreciated what he said when he was asked a question by Marty Smith of ESPN. What do you hope people who are watching this, can take away from you never giving up? And he said, you just said it. Never give up.
Yeah.
We all have our stuff. We all go through things. And every day can be a fight, and I'm ready to get up and fight that fight every day. That can be applied to all walks of life, with people with more extreme challenges that even he has. I thought it was an extraordinary achievement for him to play competitive golf and to finish 72 holes.
It definitely was. And, I definitely myself channeled Tiger over the fall when I had my hernia operation. I had my own issues. And, some dark moments, and where you think, well, here's Tiger Woods, who's had umpteen surgeries and, car accident that nearly killed him. So all of us can take something from what Tiger's done. And let's not forget that a year ago, he was considering a wooden leg. And then now he's just played the Masters, made the cut. And it was a heroic finish. We could see that he wasn't comfortable. He's never going to tell us how much pain he was in, but you could tell walking up hills he wanted to get off the course, but he was enjoying it being there. The fans were extremely appreciative, even bad shots, whatever it was. They just loved seeing him walking around the golf course. And like you said, this is the start. So the fact that he played the Masters defied what many analysts predicted, including Craig Can a few weeks ago.
That video went viral on our part. We got over 10,000 views of him saying that Tiger is not playing. There's no way.
Yeah, and he said, take this clip and throw me under the bus and back it over me.
So we did.
Him. So
as you should.
Yeah.
To one of my good friends.
He was
it's
great.
It's understandable
on the show.
that anyone would say, no, this is not going to happen. This is not going to happen. I just thought once I knew that he was walking the golf course and Joe LaCava was down at Medalist, that it was all systems go unless something got in the way, and that with every day he was checking, certain physical and psychological boxes. And then the trip up to Augusta the prior week with Charlie and the practice round with Justin Thomas totally fortified my belief that it was all systems go. And I understand him saying it was a game time decision. He had to walk the golf course on consecutive days in the practice rounds preceding the start on Thursday. I will tell you that walking that golf course, everyone's like, well, come on, it is with the exception of the plantation course at Kapalua, it is the most extreme up and down that these and I'm not just talking about like, well, golfers, are they athletes? Walk that golf course in competition and it takes its toll. Yeah. And I thought to some degree it took its toll on him, but like I said, he finished the race. And I know that he took personal pride in doing that. And I'm glad that he expressed that just playing, it was Ian O'Connor asked the question, is this somewhat of a victory on its own? And he said, yes, emphatically. Good. I'm glad you said that, because that is, that's inspirational to other people.
What's even more inspiration now, Gary, is the fact that Cara Banks got the exclusive with him afterwards for Sky Sports and mentioned that he is playing Southern Hills. That he's thinking about Southern Hills, but he is playing St. Andrews. Sorry. And that's pretty amazing that he's made up his mind. He said it's his favorite golf course. He can't wait to go back there. He's won there twice. I mean, we're looking at a guy, for those of you who don't really know Tiger Woods in all of its shapes and forms, I mean, we're talking about a guy who's won he's won the Masters in 97, 2001, 2, 5, and of course in 2019. He's won over $10 million at this course as of now. Even though he didn't finish too well, he's 46 years old. He's got 82 wins. He's got 15 majors. And we keep on talking about that because it is epic. It is something amazing. And he deserves all the attention. However, we talk about how Tiger's finally opened up. I think it's taken him, 20, 30 years to finally open up, because he's been living in this bubble since he's been 5 years old. I could never speak for Tiger Woods, even his father, for how he feels, his world from the inside out, because we're looking at him from the outside in. And who knows, we know that he's a great dad, that he's more active than ever with his family responsibilities, with all the sponsorship, with everything that goes out there, being a star, a superstar. He's handled himself extremely well. And we should be talking about Tiger Woods now, week after week, more so than ever, because we got to a point where people were saying, enough with Tiger Woods, how about the other guys, right? But they don't quite have the same resume.
They don't, and I listen. I kind of get it, but I don't really get it from people who are like, the Tiger fatigue. Enough. There's a responsibility in broadcast media and in distribution of content, unless you really don't care about whether people watch or not, to give people what they want. And the overwhelming majority of people can't get enough of him. And you pointed out the ratings for watching him hit balls on the range. I'll give you a little historical footnote. In 2013, when he played at the PGA at Oak Hill in Rochester, he was going through some changes and going through some stuff. Now, he wound up having a fabulous year that year. He won 5 times. He was the player of the year. He won the Players. He won 2 World Golf Championships. But he had some struggles at various times relative to everybody else. And there was a range session he had where he was putting a glove under his arm, and he was on the range. Now, we stayed on him on morning drive one morning. It was the highest rated quarter hour in the history of the program. Him hitting golf balls on a range in Rochester, New York. So, when you look at scenes of people and these masses, I go back to 2018 at the PGA at Belle Reve when he finished. It was, people were there in mass and you just don't see that. And yeah. I will tell you, on the first tee on Saturday when he was playing with Kevin Kisner, and I'm standing right underneath the big oak tree outside of the clubhouse, and people kind of meander around there, and they kind of come and go, and they kind of lean in on a shot here or a shot there, and time just passes. But the anticipation of him coming out of the clubhouse and walking to that first tee, people came out of every door in the clubhouse like clockwork at Augusta National to lean forward and get as decent a view of that first tee. And I'm talking about media members. I'm talking about Augusta National members. I'm talking about dignitaries in the game, not to mention the throngs of fans who were there. It's a once-in-a-century experience to see him play golf. And it's going to be covered appropriately so, fully.
He unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but he transcends golf in a lot of ways. And it's not just as a golf player, but as an athlete and as a person globally. I mean, they were doing a spotlight on Tiger Woods during an event, I think it was out in Japan this year, where they just interviewed people on the street. Who's the best golfer in the world? Do you know golf? They don't know, but they know Tiger Woods. So they all brought up Tiger Woods. Do you know who Tiger Woods is? And they all said yes. So that just goes to show you. I remember in 2000 going to Glen Abbey during the Canadian Open, where he went out and won and did that fabulous replayed shot on number 18 where he hit that 6-iron bunker shot over the water, over the pin. I was standing right there. I just was in the right place at the right time. And it was an incredible experience. But walking through the gates at Glen Abbey, and I remember he had already teed off, it went 13, 14, 15 rows deep around the green, and I looked down the road up that hole. It went all the way down to the tee box, and I said, what happened? I thought something happened, like something tragic happened, because there were, there's police cars, there's ambulances on the main road. I thought something happened, but it was just Tiger Woods playing golf, and everybody wanted to take a look at somebody who transcends the sport.
He is a cultural icon. He's not a golf icon. He's not a sporting icon. He's a global cultural icon. And to the point you just made, I mean, you go to any culture anywhere in the world, and if you mention his name, there's a likeliness that they will know of his existence to varying degrees. And I'll tell you an example. On Friday, I was coming up a flight of stairs that is just to the left of 16 on the bank there where a lot of people will sit. And when you come up that flight of stairs, the sixth tee is right there, and the fifth green is right behind it. And just to the left of that is a giant scoreboard. And as I walked up that flight of stairs with a friend of mine, there was about 500 people looking straight back at the scoreboard. And I'm like, and I said to him, what are they looking at? What is going on around here? And I'm looking around, and there was nothing. I'm like, what are they looking at? And then I noticed there was a golf bag laying there, and it was a ping golf bag. And I thought, okay, who's over here? And then I saw Joaquin Niemann come out of a restroom that's tucked way back behind underneath that scoreboard. And he comes out and he walks by and he makes his way up to the 6th tee. And they're all still staring in that same direction. And about a minute later, Tiger came out of that same restroom. He's just going to the bathroom. And there are 500 people, honestly, just staring at him to get a reasonable look at this man as he walks to the 6th tee. Now, I'm not saying that that's normal or should people, aspire to do that, but that's what he is. Yeah. He is a golfing deity, and we don't know how much more we're going to see of him. So if you can get a glimpse, you get a glimpse.
Yeah, the first time I saw Tiger up close live was at the Montreal President's Cup in 2007 with Raf, and this was on the practice round on the Tuesday. And we were inside the ropes, and we're lucky enough to be following with the gang. And the way the routing worked, we ended up having to cross some bridges with them and get very close. But at the end of that round, I couldn't believe the mayhem that the fans were expressing. He was going towards the clubhouse, and you got to imagine all the thick French Canadian accents. Hey, Tiger, Tiger, hey, and they're all reaching across the ropes. He's got 4 cops around him trying to give him some space, and I was getting irritated because I was like, oh, everyone settled down. They had no respect for his space. Everyone just trying to get a piece, and that was the first time I saw him live, and I've been lucky to get close to a few other tournaments over the years. But wow, like the patience that he has to not get frustrated and at least not show it anyway, was really impressive. And just everywhere he goes, he can't go down to the mall and grab an ice cream cone without getting swarmed, right? So he's in a different realm than all of us, and yes, we should talk about him. He's like a fascinating character. He's an unbelievable golfer, and he could really do anything he wants. He could run for president, would probably win by a landslide. If he wanted to ruin the rest of his free time.
Right. No, for a man who has a boat named Privacy, I don't think he wants that.
Yeah.
I think, and just a final thought on this is that I do think that he doesn't become less interesting. He becomes more interesting because it's not just age that he's trying to punch back at. He's trying to punch back at the realistic aspirations of somebody who's had a life-threatening car accident, to go back and not just live a normal life, what it appears he's well equipped to do now, which is by far the most important thing, but to maybe go out and achieve again in this game that he beat down for so many years, that he is going to try to achieve more. And I think it makes it even more fascinating.
Outside of Phil Mickelson landing on the range in a Trump helicopter, I don't think anything would steal the show. But where that re-entry point is your guess is as good as mine, and
look, he's supposed to defend at Southern Hills in a little bit over a month.
That's right.
And I don't have any idea.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody does.
He's gone dark for sure.
How about Gary Player wearing a Saudi Golf League logo for the opening tee shot? That's a statement.
You talk about, that when I saw that, I went, wow, this guy is, again, he's a righteous dude at 86 years of age. And, I'm certain that he was very well paid to adorn that on the collar of his mock turtleneck. Not too surprised though.
Yeah, I'm not surprised either. I think there's a lot of people involved with Saudi golf and golf course design and in business, and nobody really wants to talk about it. It's a difficult subject, but there's a lot of people involved with that country in some shape or form or investment. And so, it's a hard subject to talk about because then that opens up a Pandora's box for a lot of people. And so people are staying quiet. And when it's time to talk about it, we'll talk about it some more.
Yeah,
but
it's just going to happen, and everyone's going to have to deal with it.
That's right.
Yeah, it's going to happen. Yeah. That I agree with. And then how everybody, I think we're all curious, and time will tell when they have that first event in June who turns up. And I think as time passes and events start to click off and get consumed by whatever public there is, that's going to, the consumption of it by the golfing public. When people look up and go, if you play the game and you go, wait a second, he made how much for finishing fourth?
Yeah.
And I'm out here beating my head against the wall.
That's right. Yeah. And I think that's the strategy Greg Norman talked about. He talked about the fact that once the players start seeing what the 500th ranked player in the world makes by finishing in the top 5, they'll start second guessing their decision not to go play an event, because you really don't know how long your career is. You don't know how hot you could maintain, or how long you could maintain your card for. And just so we could circle back and finish this off with Tiger. He's got Southern Hills coming up for the PGA. Then we've got St. Andrews. Yeah.
Brookline before's.
And we've got Brookline over at the Country Club for the U.S. Open. And, there's Phil Mickelson. He's also chasing a career Grand Slam. Rory's not the only one. I'm sure he'd love to wrap that up in a nice little bow and get some recognition. So how he does that, I think a press conference is in play at some point in time before he comes out. Jay Monahan's made it very clear that his phone is on, and he's willing to speak to him on how he would re-enter the sphere of golf on the PGA Tour, and even though the majors are a separate entity in itself. I mean, he could make an arrangement with those institutions as he comes out and decides to play.
I think that the likelihood of a press conference is probably a good call. I do think it would be in his best interest to re-enter doing a one-on-one with somebody, because when you enter into this realm of all of this assembled media, you can be as well prepared as possible. Those questions can come fast. They can, they're going to be in his face. And I think it may be best to kind of populate the space with something that's a little bit more cerebral of an environment in a one-on-one. Now, look, whoever does it, for his sake, and I don't have any earthly idea whether this is going to happen or not, it would be doing him a disservice if they didn't ask him every hard question. You have to.
Yeah, you have to. You have to answer it.
But that time is coming. I just don't think we're going to get past something like a PGA where he's supposed to be coming back to celebrate one of the great major championship victories in the history of golf, and him to not turn up at all in some way or another.
It'd be very distracting at the event if that's the first time that we see him.
I think it's got to be before then.
Yeah. Well, I nominate you, Gary. I think you got to have him back on your show, and You know,
Be happy to welcome him back. He was the first guest.
He was. That was fantastic. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of other players that we haven't talked about, sort of under the radar, like I mentioned earlier. Players like Spieth, players like Thomas, Im, even players like Fitzpatrick, you know, who really don't get enough talk about. Matsuyama, who's our former winner at the Masters. Varner III, playing exceptional golf.
He's on a great roll.
You know, until he shot an 80 on the fourth day for his first visit, for someone who's never played the golf course. For someone who on your show has no recollection of watching a full Masters day, never mind the whole event.
He said that out loud?
No, he did. Yes. I was kind of cringing. I couldn't, you know, but it's a new generation. I think he'll come to his own when he gets to a point when he does start appreciating and watching. I think his experience of going out to the golf course and understanding the grandeur of the Masters and what it really means to golf. He might come around to watching an event. But he played, surprisingly really well. Right.
Yeah.
And then you
did. That point about like this absence of perspective, it does kind of, I am perplexed by that. And Colin Morikawa, I don't know if you guys heard this in his pre-tournament press conference, they were asking him about his thoughts and his memories of the Masters. He said, I don't really have any. I got to be honest, I don't really have any. Like, if you point out things that have happened here and there, he goes, I don't have any idea. And I'm thinking to myself, really? Like, you grew up in this game and like you don't, and that's just, it may be a generational thing, but then I look at Jon Rahm, and Jon Rahm can't get enough of the history of the game and trying to get as much understanding of what has happened, before him. Harold surprised me with that.
Well, Gary, you worked as an instructor.
Yes.
You know, and you've worked with players, and I work with a lot of young players. I'm back to teaching over the last few years now. And some of the young players, they don't watch golf, or they've never watched golf. And I don't even know how to respond sometimes, right? That they're trying to get out there and they want to play in professional events and they're shooting lights out for college or university golf, or even new instructors that I've met. They haven't seen it. So I don't get that, but I think, you know, we're getting older as well. I'm 48 now. Mike's 49. You're
48. Settle down.
You know, but you're right. There are a lot of players who certainly still appreciate the game, understand the history, and look at the game. I'm looking at some of the players that missed the cut this week. Oosthuizen, Casey. That was kind of unfortunate. Worth mentioning. Hagestad was in a fantasy pool of mine. He didn't play too well. An incredible player. It was a long shot, but I played many pools.
Clearly, if Stuart Hagestad is on your fantasy team
for a top 10,
you have a lot of teams.
That's a true fantasy team, right?
Yeah, true fantasy. It was a top 10. But we're looking at guys like Koepka and Spieth, which it's hard for me to understand for these guys to shoot 75, 76. And being extremely upset with their game. When I look at Spieth, and he's got that over-the-top move, even in that Titleist commercial where he's got that, it's driving me crazy. I don't understand. I understand he wants to cut the ball. He wants to play a power fade, except it's so exaggerated. It looks so wrong. It's the opposite of, swinging around your body that I want somebody to go over there and tackle him.
He posts up on the follow.
Both.
Yeah. His footwork and his post up on his follow through are weird to my eye as well. And I'm not a trained golf instructor, but I think I know my way around the golf swing. I find that's really odd. But I mean, who am I to say? He's one on tour with it. But it seems like it's digressing in the wrong direction. So we'll see how this works out. But
I'm not liking where it's going, and I am particularly taken by him for a lot of reasons. I think his family story is a reflection of sibling responsibility at a young age that he took on. with the challenges that his sister has, that thrust him into, taking on responsibility that a lot of kids at that age are never in a position to have to do. And he didn't shuck them. He took them on. I thought he burst onto the scene in a way. And when I say burst onto the scene, the guy won 2 U.S. juniors. He played well as a teenager in the Byron Nelson. And I've talked to his father about this, and his brother, Stephen, who played college basketball at Brown University, which is, obviously one of the best schools in America. He said, Stephen should have been the golfer because he's much more deliberate about things. He's much more of a premeditated person, whereas Jordan is very instinctual. And I said, well, Sean, what does that tell you about the way Jordan plays golf? And he said, well, what do you mean by that? I said, well, he should play by instinct. And I thought that he did for the beginning of his career. There was something very natural and including his footwork, which, yes, unorthodox, but it was him. It was his. And I thought that he played golf with a vision of what he saw in the air and what he needed to produce. And now I think there's too much thought about the swing he wants to produce as opposed to the flight of the ball that he wants to produce.
Yeah,
and I had a moment with him at the 2019 Players Championship, and I had followed him for a number of rounds that year and chronicled his shots because I just was really interested with what I thought was going on. And at the Players that year, the second round, he started on the back nine, and on the 15th hole, he was playing well. He'd shot 76 in the opening round, and he was standing in the middle of the fairway, and I was inside the ropes, but I was on the left-hand side, and he had a really good shot to a back right pin, and he made birdie, and he turned in 32, and he was walking from the 18th green to the first tee, which is a long walk at the stadium course. And I was in front of him, and I never engage players in the middle of rounds. I don't even look them in the eyes. It's just, there's some OCD going on with me, but also I just don't want to, I don't want to engage them in any way. But I was in front of him, and he said, Gary, and I turned around and I said, how you doing? He goes, well, if I can do that for 9 more holes, I'll be doing pretty good. I said, well, you hit a good shot on 15. He goes, yeah, I was in a divot. And I went, there you go. He just thought about, because of the lie, the shot that he needed to create, not some level lie and what kind of golf swing he was going to try to produce. And yes, he dug it out and he won last year at Valero. But this thing he's going on with his pre-shot, I just think there's too much thought. And I think that he's a much more, there's much more intuition to the way he plays, particularly if you look at his record at Augusta National, which every lie is usually going to be above your feet or below your feet. And I think that was one of the reasons why his record was so good. It required imagination. And I just wonder where his mind is right now, shot to shot, as opposed to creating something in the air, as opposed to what you're trying to create with your hands and your golf swing.
It's hard to manufacture. Go ahead, Ralph.
Well, I was just going to say that Rory talks about this and how he enjoyed his final round, because I think he started visualizing. We saw the Rory of old, where he's kind of visualizing and playing the shot. I mean, all the physical and technical aspects, as you know, Gary, in the golf swing are done on the range in practice. When you're out on the golf course, obviously it's easier said than done, but you want to visualize the shot and play the shot, right? Play the shot by shot. You're kind of visualizing how do you want to see your ball flight? Where do you want to see it land? Look at your numbers, but you're not playing golf swing. You're playing the golf shot itself. You're visualizing the shot and then executing. And so I think that's what's happening with the guys. Also, there's a lot of new golf techniques where obviously we see people like Wolf, who's got a different type of move, much like Furyk did back in the day, but in his own way. But the players are taking the club back shut. And I don't get that. Obviously they're covering it a lot better, and they're coming slightly over the top, and they're able to get more distance. It's a straighter ball flight. They don't shape the ball as much. So if you take the club back into the first position where the toe of the club is pointing up, you're using your hands a lot more. And that's where you see the players like Scheffler, who has a touch around the greens, or Cam Smith. You have the guys who could really scramble because they have
Shane Lowry, another one.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But there's a lot of players who don't have the touch, who don't have I mean, with a chip or a flop shot. I mean, Mike and I, we spend 2 to 3 days a week pitching and putting, or going to pitch and putt courses, just working on 100 yards in. I mean, and it might be an old way of learning.
You're the two who do that. You two are the ones who are doing that, because nobody else is. I always used to tell students, look over that putting green, and they go, "There's nobody over there." Exactly.
Yeah.
Get over there.
Yeah.
It is the most. It really is the most counterintuitive thing that golfers do. What requires the most strokes, most shots in the course of your round every day, no matter what, whether you played well or played poorly? Putting and chipping.
Yeah.
And what time do you devote to that? By far the least. By far the least.
Yeah. No, I see it all the time. In every single scorecard, there's 36 putts and regulation strokes that are on that card. Doesn't matter what par is. But there's 36 putts, and that's the easiest way to break par on part of that card, is work on your putting and your short game. So you come in with 30 or less, and right away you've just saved a whole bunch of shots. And I myself, and like Raf and I, it's going back into the 90s when we used to rent a house here in East Vancouver. We used to practice our flop shots, up to the second level, and all there's
in the house,
in every wall in the house.
Yeah, we really had to patch that place up when we moved out.
But I carry that over right into, because I play a lot of amateur tournaments, and actually for me, I go over to the short game area, put my headphones on. They're bigger, so people can see they're the F off headphones. Like, don't talk to me. And I'll spend my time there. Chip, putt, pitches, and then I'll go hit a bucket, maybe two, and then get out. And that's, and plus I'm 48. Wrists hurt, back hurts and stuff. So I can't hit 400 or 500 balls a session. So I'll go hit 50 or 100, with some thought to it.
Well, Mike, you have joy. Think about the joy we have in doing that, right? Yeah. I don't see juniors or players coming up right now who take that passion and joy of just practicing hours on end. You could have left me there for hours, whether it was in my 20s or 30s or even now. I could spend that time creatively working on shots. Several positions, even, from square to fully open in one shot.
Yeah.
And then, without hinging your wrists, with hinging your wrists, putting more weight on your front foot, ball position. I hours of practice and fun.
Yeah, left-handed upside down. I'm a righty, so I'll practice that left-handed shot, and I've done it in tournaments, and I can hear the people in my group saying, "What the F is he doing?" And then I'll put it back into play, or and hit some shot, and they'll talk about it for the round. So but you got to put this time in and appreciate grinding it out on your short game, because if your short game's solid, then you can afford to miss a tee shot or an approach during a competition, because your chipping and pitching and putting is solid. That it saves your ass.
Well, that is back to Tiger for a second. I think that one of the things that is, it's not that it's so much underrated, but it just isn't talked about as much because of all of the the kind of the heroic shots and the dramatic full shots that he's hit. Nobody has salvaged more shots the closer he's gotten to the hole than he has, because his short game was so buttoned up. It was so good that he always turned 75 into 71 and 71 into 67. And that's why he's a once in a couple of generations of type of players that there were no holes in the game. There was nothing. It was not only all the talent. There's a fabulous book by a doctor, psychiatrist, Dr. Angela Duckworth, and she actually works with a lot of professional teams in college programs in the United States. She wrote a book called Grit, and her formula talks about it's a great book, and she talks about how talent and effort equals skill plus effort equals achievement. There are a lot of guys with a lot of talent. Give me the guy with refined skill. And for every person who tells me, well, this young guy hits it forever, I want to know about the kid who makes everything.
Right.
Tell me about that kid. because that kid has a chance. But scoring is a skill. Not that hitting it far isn't a skill, but scoring is the skill that is the most required.
Yeah, like Cam Smith's a birdie machine. I mean, if you look at his short game and what he does, what he did up in Kapalua, what he did at the Players on the final day, the amount of birdies he put on his card, I think it was eight or 10 at the Players on the final round. It's pretty incredible. And when I see shots at the Masters in the perfectly manicured chipping areas around every green, and we have the golf analysts talking about how hard this shot is, and I know it is under the pressure. I can't imagine what it feels like, but I'm drooling to want to have an opportunity to have a shot like that. I love chipping and pitching. I rather chip and pitch than putt, to tell you the truth. I'll never putt off the surface unless I'm fairly close in the first cut, but I'll always chip. I'll even chip on the green. If it's a 60, 70 foot putt, you'll see me pull out my wedge. Mike could attest to it. I'll go for it and I'll play one of my 4 wedges. Guys, we're running low on time. We're at the 1 hour mark. If you just tuned in or you were with a very special guest, Gary Williams of 5 Clubs Golf. Tell us about how we could watch you or listen to you. I know you're on SiriusXM as well. Yeah,
you can. We've got a YouTube channel. It's 5 Clubs Golf, and also on all the digital platforms, Spotify, Apple iTunes, Art19. If you just Google 5 Clubs Golf, and it's me, and we're getting ready. I had lunch today with Jay Billis, who is college basketball analyst, but Jay's a passionate golfer. Jay is going to be doing his next show next week, and we appreciate it. Things have come along very nicely. The growth of the people who are downloading the shows and our YouTube subscribers is going up and up. And so we're excited, and we're one major into the men's and women's game, and most of North America has not played any golf yet this year. Living in Florida as I did for 10 years, you get so insulated by your own existence that you're like, you don't realize that, it's April 1st or now it's April 11th. And it's like, there are a lot of people who have not even hit a golf shot this calendar year. Yeah. But it's time. It's getting to be that time at a lot of places, including, where you guys live, that it's time to play golf. And the season's just beginning.
I finally had a chance to get out there. I got out there 5 days last week, just chipping and putting. It's about 45 degrees Fahrenheit. It's not warm, but I got an opportunity to practice with my son, who's 15 years old. And I like the fact that you bring up psychology very quickly. I'm reading Bob Rotella with him, Think Like a Champion, a great book, and my second or third read. Kind of a friendly reminder of how the mental game plays a large part in whether you play recreational golf or competitive golf. Mike, your final thoughts, and Gary, your final thoughts on the Masters, maybe your favorite experience or a small story, whether it's a pimento cheese sandwich or what you had to eat or what you experienced this time around. Give us a...
Well, first of all, it's never going to be a pimento cheese sandwich. My mother makes pimento cheese that is so good that a lot of people in the family have encouraged her to go into business. She's like, I'm 82 years old. I don't need to be starting a business. My favorite experience is really what it always has been, which is walking that golf course and to consider what that place was, to consider what it is today, and the vision that has been required through the generations to maintain this level of a theater and a platform for these players to play is mind-blowing. And from every little detail, like I was parked the car on Friday, and there was a great electronic scoreboard that was in the parking lot, in this little parking lot, as you're walking down this pathway, showing you the updated scores and the tee times for that day. I'm like, who thinks of that? Who thinks of having a permanent electronic scoreboard, in the parking lot if you're starting your day? It's just all of the attention to every solitary detail. and their insistence that this is supposed to be a singular experience. Leave your phone in the car, engage the people you're with, share the experience, and whether that was all done with that principle in mind, I don't care. It's achieved, and I'm incredibly grateful to have the chance to go back there every year. Seeing golf shots is great, but just being there, I went there for the first time with my mom and dad in 1991, and was emotional being there as somebody who just grew up loving the game. And you guys were talking about, why don't these guys watch? Maybe that's why they're great, and we're doing what we did. Because I used to watch the Masters wearing my spikes instead of being out there hitting golf balls.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just being there, and walking that golf course is as enjoyable as an experience as I've ever had in golf.
Mike, your thoughts, final thoughts on Masters?
Well, I'm on the lottery every year, and it just doesn't seem to hit those numbers, but I'm hopeful, or maybe a media pass will come out one day. But we're up for media passes soon. Yeah, so anybody listening, but no, I find that, even before, I started golfing in my sort of mid-late teens, but I paid attention to the Masters. And my dad's not a golfer by any means, but he would always watch the Masters. I recall the 86 Masters when Jack won. Now at this point, people need to recognize that the Masters is it's an international tournament. They do a lot for amateur golfers, international players to play. And how many players do you hear could come from all over the world, Ireland, Spain, you name it? What do they say? They would wait, stay up late at night, watch the Masters. It starts around 8:30 their time. They would watch till the wee hours of the morning, and that was the start of their golf season. That's why I believe that more the international players are more historians of the game than some of the North American players. And I feel the same, even though where I live in Vancouver, we're golfing all year round, but this is really when the weather's starting to get warmer and golf season's here, and it's the Masters reinforces that. And in terms of the broadcast, what do you see, 2 minutes of commercials per hour? You don't see logos all over the place. You really, truly get the stereo going. And I need to add another TV this year because of ESPN. So for next year, I'm going to have 2 screens going. But you just absorb it. It's okay to sit on the couch and watch golf for this weekend. And, for that, we love it. So I want to point out there's quite some trolls online commenting about how bad the coverage is this year. And I did, defend it a little bit. I thought it was well done as usual. And Gary, like you said, the details, you're coming from the parking lot and there's a TV giving you an update. They don't miss anything there. So, all the power to them and just, it's going to get better and better in the future.
The Masters certainly do it right. Our 2022 champion, Scottie Scheffler. I really enjoyed the fact that I was able to go to masters.com, watch any shot at any given time by any player, and that was unique in itself. The Masters just do it right. It's a familiarity that everyone has because you return to the same place every year, and that's why we love it so much. Gary, thanks so much for coming on again.
Yes, thank you, Gary.
It's been a pleasure. Hopefully you could join us again. Maybe we'll get some golf in sometime in the near future.
I hope so, guys. I love being with you guys. Appreciate your commitment and your passion for the game that you're covering, that we all love so much. And I look forward to golf, but as much as that, I look forward to the conversation the next time we do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're always welcome back, and love your knowledge of the game and the data. We didn't really get any embarrassing stories this time, but
we'll get it next time.
Yeah, there's always time for an embarrassing story next time.
Yeah, exactly. Excellent. Okay, well, thank you everyone for listening. And again, our show is available on all the popular platforms. Give us a subscribe and a like and a follow wherever they may be, and we appreciate all of you.
Great. For Gary Williams, Michael Bleackley, I'm Rafael Kalamat. You've been listening